Okay, it's the end of the session. I'm here with my buddy Phoebe. She's chewing on a bully stick and she's had a long day, so she's decided that's where she wants to camp out, so that's why I'm here. So it was really refreshing to do this session. A lot of my clients really need just the ultimate fundamentals and the basics when it comes to dog behavior, and the Guardians here actually is very advanced, and so we were able to skip by a lot of things like marker words and things like that. I would recommend the continuing of celebrating all the actions that you do. The more you reward the things that your dog does that you like, the more your dog's going to do those things to get your attention. Now, a couple of the concepts that we talked about, one of the things we talked about was shaping. So she's not a big fan of toys. And so shaping is really rewarding a small segment of a bigger activity or behavior. So what I would do is every time you get your bark box, just take one of those out, keep the other two away, and clip the tags off. And then I would kind of shake it a little bit and throw it on the ground. As soon as she looks at it, yes, or click, and then give her a treat. And so and then what you'll find is, and if the environment's kind of quiet, eventually she'll figure out and she looks at it and you click and get a treat. And then eventually, she might lean towards it and then you click and get a treat. And then if she picks it up, click, and make sure you pet her. You don't want to give her a treat for that. A lot of times that'll cause her to disengage and drop the item. But also motion can help. So that you might be able to use that shaping and then eventually get into fetching. And so fetch is a wonderful way to burn energy inside, and it's a nice engaging game. And since she likes to catch, you can kind of tease her with it a little bit and then throw it up in the air, kind of spins, and hopefully she grabs it, snatches it, mark, and then pet her as your reward. It'd be nice if you can use that, and you can shape other things as well. So for example, another concept that's not quite shaping, but she is dog reactive. Now, Guardian has done a really good job, and it really depends on how close the dog is. So always gauge on the other dog's behavior. Is it walking nicely next to its Guardian, or is it kind of boisterous and running all over the place barking? Those dogs you're gonna have to be further away. I gauge how comfortable a dog is by how many moves it goes into a run. If it's running, it's already there. But if a dog's sitting, I feel more, if I'm standing, I can go straight in a run. If I'm sitting, that's one move, laying down, two moves. So she's pretty relaxed right now, and she's behind me. And she was able to lay down in a more busy environment, but the Guardian was kind of practicing an environment that I would think would be a little bit too busy for me. I would want to work up to that environment, but I would start like right here, there's a park. You can't see off camera, there's some kids practicing baseball. There's some lovers over there that are having a picnic. We have a car going over here, somebody's eating lunch behind us. And so there's a lot of stuff, but it's a low energy. And so she's able to process it. So I like to go through stages. So for the park, and this would be a good park to do it at, there's a path. Usually you'll find between 4 and 6 o'clock, that's when most people are out walking their dogs. So if you can arrange it to go there, and you can walk alongside the path, and there's a nice green space. Now the Guardian here uses search, so make sure you do that every once in a while for no reason. Just throw it on the ground so she's used to doing that. But now when you're walking along, you can find a dog whose energy is appropriate. Walk along and kind of shadow that dog. We call it parallel walking. So you might be 10 feet, 12 feet, 20 feet, whatever it is, and you're walking along with the dog. When a dog is stationary and static, it really can focus on one thing. And that often can bring out some of the behaviors we don't like. So if we're walking, she's encountering pollen, she sees squirrels, she hears people, but there's a dog walking, and gradually you can get a little bit closer and closer. Now this might not be on one walk, but if you're walking the same area multiple days, a lot of times or the same time of the day, a lot of times you'll find the same dogs, and you start walking with those dogs over and over. Now, one of the triggers for her is sound. And one of the things I think that will be really beneficial for the Guardian here is to use a lot of counter conditioning. Now, for counter conditioning, we want to basically expose the dog to the stimulus, the sight, sound, or smell, like person, place, or thing, at a low enough level where the dog is not reactive. They can be aware and they can be alert, but we don't want them to be reactive or anxious. And so what I would do is walk around with your phone, and if there's a dog in your neighborhood that walks by that she barks at, follow them out the door and just record the audio, and then go back inside, play that audio, and if it's just a jingle, you can play the audio, give a treat. So maybe you're playing at level 4, and she perks up a little bit, and she kind of stops eating. Well, then that's getting close to her breaking point. So maybe we'd play the volume at level 3. And when you get to the point where she can continue, then we play it, then you give her the treat. And eventually, after doing that 4 or 5 or whatever number of times, then try to level 4, level 5, level 6. Eventually work your way up as loud as the phone goes, and then plug it into like a boom or an external speaker. Keep on going up. Make a list of all the things that are triggers for her, all the sounds of the dogs in your building, your neighborhood. Keys by themselves are a trigger. Now, if that, I would do more just say straight, just desensitization. So if a dog gets really excited when I pick up the leash and say, let's go for a walk, I would say, let's go for a walk 1,000 times a day without going for a walk. I would go over, walk to where the leash is and reach for it. If I'm reaching for it, the dog gets up, I pull my arm back and go sit down. This is a great thing to do if you're doing straight desensitization throughout the day. You're not like practicing for 5 minutes. So every once in a while, she's nice and relaxed, play the recording of the keys jingling, but play them low enough where she hears it, but she doesn't get up and run around. And then gradually you're going to raise that level as well, but we're not following it with a reinforcer, we're just desensitizing her. So eventually she hears all that jingling, she's not responsive to it. And so that's a nice thing, because triggers cause dogs to have cortisol in their blood. That can activate their adrenal glands, and then it makes us worked up, and there's a cascade effect, a domino effect of a whole bunch of different things that are going on. So if we can make a list of all those things and systematically counter-condition or desensitize her to all of those things, then you walk around and she hears that dog in the neighborhood. Now the dog's motion is what's attracting her, not the sound of the trigger. And so if that's the case, then find a distance where you can walk alongside that person, or you could do that static as long as you're far enough away. Now, if I'm doing it like where I'm static and I'm having people walk down the path, I would basically wait until, and I use the sit as an indicator. Can I get her to sit at this distance? Nope, then I move 5 feet away. Keep doing that, and keep repeating that until you get to a distance where she'll sit the first time you say it. That's an indication she's comfortable. Again, how many moves into a run. And then I have the person walking back and forth, and a lot of times I try to cheat and have the person under my control. That doesn't sound right, but a friend or somebody with a dog. And so that way I can tell them to start and stop. I like to use earbuds for this, so I can tell them what to do. If you're at a park here, that's great. If you're more advanced, I think you guys being more advanced could do this. I'm just laughing at the colloquialism of saying you guys. But if you have a friend, especially if a dog that's more difficult, having a friend that controls that dog that can move outside of the line of sight. So have a shrubbery or something like that available. There's a book that my mentor wrote called Feisty Fido, Solutions for the Leash Active Dog. It's Karen London is her name. And so one of the things she does is kind of it's a version of engage, disengage. But what she likes, and I haven't read this for years, so this might be my imagination, but what I think that if I remember my memory, she liked you to find like an area where there's shrubberies here, open space, shrubberies, or something obstructing. So you have a limited area where the dog can see the other dog. And so what she does is she does, I think, watch. I like to say, look at me, or whatever that is. I say focus, actually. And so when the dog looks at the other dog, you're doing the engage-disengage game, and eventually the dog goes out of sight. So if you can also do this like in between houses, because if you're deep in between the two houses, it creates a visual lane that's a very short period of time. That the dog's gonna be passing in front. So you want the dog to be able to look at the other dog without reacting. And this is a version of Tricia Stewart's BAT, or behavior adjustment training, where we're helping our dog practice being around other dogs. But as the guardian, we are managing the situation as opposed to the dog. When dogs are barking and lunging, they're trying to make the thing go away. So that's why I like using the find it or searches. So if I see a dog coming and I know it's a dog that my dog's gonna be reactive to, I can do a find it behind her, and then there, and I can get her to go away. My brain is going like crazy, so I'm just going to throw these random things out as they come into me. So practice U-turns. So when you're walking and there's nobody around and there's no reason to do it, if she's walking you walk on the right or left? Right. So when you're walking on the right, touch her nose with the treat, say left, or if you want to do U-turn, say turn or U, and then do a full U-turn and then release the treat once you're facing the opposite direction. Then go about 8 or 10 paces and repeat it again. So every once in a while, this is actually from Karen London's book, she wants a plan B. So if I'm walking, I'm trapped, I can turn around and walk away from whatever it is. And if I do that a lot, my dog doesn't think that means there's another dog coming. And so it's a nice way to get around that. Now, I also would go over teaching rights and lefts. So if I turn left, I would just hold the treat, and say left, take a left turn, and once the dog completes the turn, takes one step, say your marker word and release the treat. And then go and do that every time you're taking a right or left. If you're in a nice park like this, you can do it just kind of abstract, but sometimes it's helpful if you have a marker so the dog knows where to turn left at that corner or wherever it is. And try to get in a habit of celebrating that every time you do that. Every time you turn left, left. and then turn the left and give your dog the treat. And the cool thing is when you're walking, eventually you say left and the dog bumps into you, you're like, yes, the dog really knows the cue. I'm weird, I get off on that sort of thing. So, but coming up with cues, and I would also say a stop cue. So every time you stop, I'll hold the treat in front of the dog's nose because I want to kind of help the dog, guide the dog so it's not a sudden jolt. Okay, let me see what else. We went over the capturing. I guess we talked about it a little bit, but let's talk about the other side. I used to call this petting with a purpose, but I now call this teaching dogs manners. So occasionally she comes up and she nudges for attention. I like to think of that as a child saying, Mom, I don't want this meatloaf, go make me some chicken nuggets. And usually Mom's gonna say, would you like to ask for that again? And the child said, Mommy, can I please have some chicken nuggets? And then Mom goes and does that. So when she nudges you, I'd like you to give her a do-over. Ask her to sit or lay down. Normally I don't recommend paw, but in your case, since you've already got a good high five, you can do that as well. So what I'm doing is I'm asking her to do something that I've asked her to do. And if she does it, the first time I say it, then I mark and reward. And if she doesn't do it, I just go back to whatever it was I was doing. I'm not gonna punish her, but I'm not gonna ask for it multiple times. And she seems to be a pretty well behaved dog in terms of listening to her guardian, but this will help reinforce it. And so now really we're doing it, if we're celebrating or capturing and we're teaching manners, basically we're doing this every time we pet our dog. Most of the time we're actually doing a micro dog training session that we're not even aware of the fact that we're doing it. And after a while it becomes truly a gift. It helps the dog reinforces listening, a healthy leader-follower dynamic, which is what I like to call it. It helps the dog practice the basic obedience. It makes the dog feel proud. I know how to earn my mommy's attention. And it also is a nice way to stimulate them. Now we also went over the importance of scent games. So I'd like you to Google scent games. Now Cookie in the Corner, and message me if I don't have it linked on the write-up and I'll add it in there. Cookie in the Corner is where you have a treat, you show her you have the treat, and in front of her you throw the treat towards a corner or a wall, and you say search, your cue, and then she goes and licks it up. You say the marker word when she licks it up, and then what's your cue to come? Here. She comes back when she's 1 foot away. You say here, or you say yes, and then she gets the treat. Then I throw 2 treats. I work up to about 6 treats. So this, and you can throw from a good distance, and eventually you'll find she'll start sniffing the ground there. Sniffing burns a lot of energy. So eventually you can hide treats there. Now a couple tips to this. Don't ever do it in a place you don't want her looking. Don't do it in the kids' Lego room or your kitchen or stuff like that. And if there's a rug, don't put it under the rug. Most dogs will go through the rug to find it instead of moving the rug to the side. But eventually you can hide those treats and you can just wave your arm and just say search, and she goes and starts searching the ground. At first make them easy to find, but eventually I have to go around the leg of the couch or the chair or whatever it is. And the Google scent games. There's all sorts of scent games you can do. You could get some lavender oil, put it on a cotton ball, and tape it under a solo cup, and get 2 others, and do the 3-card Monty. And she nudges the cup, and you go ahead and give her the treat. If she nudges the wrong cup, you pick it up and put it back down. How many cues does she know?
Probably 5 or 6.
Okay, so just like us, if I learn new skills, I feel pretty proud about myself. It also gives you different ways of redirecting her. So I would, one of the things I teach is a hurricane. I hold the treat to the dog's nose, didn't do a spin. Teaching them, sit pretty, bang your dead, whatever these things are can boost your dog's confidence. And remember, dogs can read facial expressions. So try to incorporate some fun cues. So I'd like you to come up with a cue for feeding. So whatever your favorite meal is, sushi or whatever it is, every time you invite her over, say sushi right before she's gonna eat. Now, you were saying she's a little finicky with eating?
Yeah.
So one of the little tips I can use, Stewart's freeze-dried beef liver, I call it crack, because dogs fiend for it. And basically they take a real beef liver, they freeze-dry it, and they drop it, and it shatters. Well, when I'm using it, I cut it up into little segments because it's really, really rich. It's something you shouldn't use in an everyday treat because it's just so nutrient rich. But it becomes dusty. And that dust is a great topper because if you crumble up a treat, they can usually lick the little pieces and leave the other stuff, but it's such a prime thing. So you might use that. And also remember, when it comes to food, the temperature is more important than the taste. Smell is number 1, temperature is number 2, taste is a distant third. They only have about 13% of the taste buds. So for some dogs, floating their food in warm water or with some chicken broth can help. You are doctoring the food a little bit, but for her, you're adding hydration, which can be helpful. Does she eat her food all at once when you give her the food? Okay. If I forget, if I don't have it here, please text me and remind me to put the bucket game. That's the game I showed you, and I'll give you a video for that. Have you ever done It's Your Choice for her? That's a Susan Garrett game. Now she does it with a negative punishment. I try not to use negative punishment. Basically what it is, the dog's here. When the dog looks at my hand, I open my hand, if the dog, let's say the dog's my knee. So I open my hand and the dog looks at it. When the dog looks at my hand, I mark, open my hand, I take a treat and give it to the dog, close my hand and move an inch closer. And eventually it gets to the point where it's like right here, and it like looks up at you, and then you take out and give them the treat. Now Susan Garrett does with a negative punishment. So she goes like this, the dog goes for it, she closes her hand. I try to avoid negative punishment because it can create frustration. It's a minor punishment, so it's not a big deal, it's not abusive, but I do try to avoid that. And the way that I do it, I just start off the treat so far away, and I don't move it at first, and gradually I start moving it. Well, there's 2 videos I can share with you. Those are good impulse control exercises. Let me see, but the parallel walking, I think for what a lot of things that you're looking for is gonna really help. And this is a great park for it because there's a nice path. You find a place where you can find dogs, and there's a dog that looks like it's just had way too many cups of coffee. Walk off the side, do some find its or some search, let that dog pass. But if you go the same time of the day every day, after a while you'll find some dogs. And then and also I'd like you to chronicle the physical characteristics of the dogs that your dog's reacted to. Now the Guardian here is very astute. She's paid a lot of attention. But look at like the coat, the size of the dog. Sometimes the sex of the dog is actually a pretty big indicator. Dogs can figure it out a lot farther away. For us, it's hard to tell if it's that a boy or a girl. But for dogs, sometimes that is a big indicator as well. Eye contact's a big one. When she's meeting people, this is my synapses are going crazy. So practice that treat trail. So leave a treat trail, treats that you know she likes, and just at first I do it about every 6 inches, then about every foot, then about every 2 feet in the middle of it. Then when I start getting closer, and I try to arrange to have the person sitting so my dog can't see the person when I come out the door. So try to have a car parked or something like that, and you want to have the person sitting. So the dog is approaching essentially like from the 5 o'clock angle or the 7 o'clock angle. And the dog comes up to me, use your gut. We have instincts for a reason. If your gut tells you that she might bite or whatever, don't let her approach. If she's not taking the treat, she's telling you I'm too wound up to do it. So I do this the first several times without anybody there. And then I have and a little bit of a jackpot of treats there, so when she gets there, yes, it's a good fun experience. Then I would have your partner or a friend or somebody that she knows that's there, but she doesn't know because she's approaching him from this angle. Oh, it's David. I love David. He gave me a lot of treats that one day. And when the person's doing it, they need to have no big movements, no eye contact, and have treats in their hands. All the treats, if the dog's approaching on this side, all the treats are in this hand. I have one treat in this hand. The dog comes to me. I hold my hand like this. I'm not looking. So you as the handler have to be mindful, and the person has to trust you. And then when the dog looks at the treat off my hand, I don't move my hand. Most of the time the dog will come back in for the second time. Now they're really getting your skin, but they do it because it looks like you have a treat in your hand. And so now the dog you're being passive, the dog is as a new person, the dog's approaching you. And if the dog won't take the treat in your hand, have them do a search and let her go get it. Then before I do the next stage, I usually like to ask the dog to sit. If a dog will sit for a new person, that's a pretty good indication they feel comfortable. If it won't, that's okay. You might have to meet a couple times. And if you can't get the dog to sit, or you don't think the dog's warmed up and comfortable, take the dog away. So Phoebe goes back inside before the person gets up. When I stand up, I become very authoritative. And I'm also moving, that's a commotion. That can cause a triggering response. And so, but again, and if I'm gonna do this with the dog Zeke that I have now, I'll do it like once or twice the first day, and then somebody's coming by the second day, I do it 2 or 3 times. And usually I do it like, by the time he comes out, he's like, oh, this is the treat trail. Oh, there's somebody there. And I always do it in the same spot, so there's some comfort for him knowing it's always the same thing, the same spot. And it's just a nice way for him to approach. And then I try to, if I'm gonna get up and I can give the dog treats in my hand, have it sit, then I'll throw a couple treats behind the dog, and I get into like a catcher's, I might move my legs like this, throw another treat away. So we want to move the dog away. So Phoebe moves a little further away. Then I slide my feet underneath me and I'm in a crouching position. And then I might stand up a little bit more and a little bit more. And every dog is going to be different. Men are usually a little bit more triggering for most dogs than women, but take note, does the guy have a beard? Is he wearing a hat? Detachable items are very hard for dogs. Glasses, hats, gloves, things like that. And eventually it gets to the point where you can go for a walk. And what I try to do is eventually, while they're walking, let's say Phoebe's walking here and this is the handler and I'm over here, I'm the handler and this is a guest. If I can, I try to hand the leash to the handler as long as everything's going well. We're still all walking together, but Phoebe looks at me, oh, you got the leash? Okay. And I'm having the person drop treats and do find its quite a bit on the walk. When you go into the house, that transition from inside to outside can be really difficult. So I'm usually doing a treat right outside the door, As we're going through the door, I'm handing the dog a treat. I might do a find it on the floor and then ask for another sit. And then I have the person sit down right away and also have the person be very passive. If I'm waiting for Phoebe to come to me, I just learned something today that for motorcycles, loud is actually safer. But if I'm being passive and Phoebe gets to come to me, she feels more relaxed. Another thing I like to do with guests is I like to play catch. She's great at playing catch. This way she can moderate however much distance she wants, and gradually it promotes the dog coming closer and closer. Tell your friend though, please don't pet her until she comes up to you. Yes, we're talking about you, sweetie. Also remember the lick mats and chewing and licking release endorphins. So, and if it is a guest, somebody that's gonna come and stay with you, have them do that scent trick that I told you. Have them, before they shower, take a washcloth, rub it on their body, especially in the armpits, it's like gross, in the crotch or on our feet, because that's where we have pheromones, and then put it in a plastic bag, mail it to you, and then you present it to Phoebe, and as she sniffs it, you take it away and give her a treat. And make sure you don't mix up your hands so you don't make the thing smell like, and then put it back in a Ziploc bag. Do it about 8 or 10 times. Do that 3 or 4 times a day. By the time the person comes in, Phoebe's like, oh, I know, I like your scent. And now she's introduced to the person without the presence of them there. That really sets her up for success. Also, don't discredit the use of exercise or mental stimulation to set a dog up for a greeting or for practice. Training is a great way to drain energy. Scent games, also same thing. Sniff walks, playing tug of war, just don't get bit. And for that, just try to play with a little bit of a bigger toy. But remember that 0 to 10 energy range. So anytime she gets a level above level 5, try to have a stop of the energy. If she's whirring around, those kids sound like they need a level 5 break. And so if you can incorporate those breaks more and more frequently, in puppy class we do this a lot, and at first they don't have any calibration, but after a while they get to level 5, they just split themselves up. I know, that was crazy. That sound. So again, same sort of thing. So if that's something that you want to work on, find a playground that you can walk around and do circles, kind of like a spot, like a maze. Gradually you get closer and closer, but movement is really helpful for dogs. If they're stopped and stationary, again, they can focus on things. If she's moving, it's a lot more relaxing and easier for them to disengage with things. Snuffle mat, try different proteins, try to get different proteins, try to different, like a lamb. Lamb and rice is very easy on their coat, it's very easy to digest. Try that for, get a small bag of that and try that for a couple weeks and see if she likes that. I feed Akana. What I like to do is I get, Akana's the brand, I get a different flavor of food each bag. So that way a little bit of variety, but it still has the same core components so the dog doesn't get gas. Make sure you marry the food together. So usually the first day it's 25% new food, 75% old food. Second day 50-50, and then I reverse it 25%, 75% for old and new. Then they don't get quite so gassy. So try that. Signature with a Z, they have kangaroo meat, duck meat, all sorts of stuff. Duck is pretty high in fat, but you might find different forms of protein that maybe are a little more agreeable with her. But if you're changing up the food, sometimes just like us, if I like pizza, but I have pizza for every meal, probably after a while I'm gonna want an apple. Trying to think, anything else you want me to go over?
That was it.
Omega Paw treat ball, that's that orange thing. Try to get some puzzles. So those are things for her to do to keep her occupied. For the trip, try to try some children's Benadryl, talk to your vet about that, and again, get usually trazodone. I'm not a vet behaviorist, so I can't prescribe or recommend drugs. Always talk to your vet and always listen to what your vet says because they went to school for that, I did not. But I would try to test that stuff out before you travel with her to make sure it affects, because trazodone doesn't always work for dogs, and especially in stressful environments. So you want to try it, and then I voir dire them like once an hour, like ass touch. Then trazodone is kind of like a Quaalude. It's going to make them a little bit loopy. So, but for flying, I would rather have a dog a little bit out of it than traumatized from an unpleasant experience. Also, last thing, remember, all behavior is trying to achieve something. So what I do as a behavior consultant is I try to reverse engineer. I don't care so much a dog is barking. I want to find out why they're barking and figure out if I can figure out a way for them to get what they want without barking. So I take away the symptom, but they still accomplish what they want. And I guess I lied. Relaxation Protocol. It's actually, I think it's Dr. Overall, but I can't remember her name, but she calls it the Protocol for Relaxation. I believe it's 1997. So it's a 15-day process, and I add different stuff to it as well, but it's a very progressive way of teaching your dog to be relaxed at home. And that might be something, it's a nice distracting exercise. It might be something you might be interested in looking up. If you do want to look up into BAT training, it's from Grisha Stewart, and that's going to be BAT 2.0. Now again, she does it without treats. I like to use the positive reinforcement, and you can read her book and kind of do what you want. And then you might also want to go to DogWise. DogWise like an owl, W-I-S-E. And there's a lot of books there on a lot of different subjects. Just like anything else, there's different forms of human psychology. There's different forms of dog training. Just make sure, and the Guardian here fortunately knows about positive reinforcement and not to use force and punishment. And most of the books on DogWise are going to fall in that category. And then, the ringworm. So you can use this, it's great, but it doesn't always work. The ringworm seems just to work. People will take steps, they'll like look at you offended. Always be your dog's advocate. Your responsibility is not other people. So if you're, and those cutoff signals, I forgot it. So remember, turning the head away, lowering the head, ears flipping back or coming forward, freezing, whale eye, baring teeth, moving away, you're gonna move away. And rolling over and giving the belly is submission. So that's like, please don't pet me. And so ask people if they want to pet, hey, can I pet your dog? Yeah, we just always let people sniff her hand first. And if she turns her head away, oh, I forgot. She's got ringworm. Nobody's supposed to touch her for 10 days. She's contagious. And turn her, walk away. Always be your dog's advocate. All right, anything else? Message me, text me if you have any questions. I don't care if it's 6 minutes from now or 6 years from now. I'm here for you. If I have to come out, I'll charge you for my time. But if phone calls or texts, I'm happy to do, and I'll be mad at you if you don't message me because I can't help you if you don't let me know. All right. Well, this is Phoebe, and this is Culver Park, and I'm David, and this is Phoebe's Roadmap to Success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog. Only sometimes you mean it.